this series against MaxPax, he is someone that if you give him time to prep, I think he can actually bust out some pretty wild and fun stuff.
No, absolutely, and he plays very well as an underdog as well. I think he plays better without pressure, and he is a very creative, very intelligent player that comes up with a lot of his own build orders and tweaks and whatnot. So if he has prepared for this, you kind of foreshadowed a little bit how he is one of the better players at preparation. There's definitely a shot here.
All right, well, let's jump into Site Delta for game number 1 of our next best of 5 series. We're going to be starting down in the bottom right-hand side on top of the red Protoss player who doesn't need too much of an introduction for most. He is one of the biggest hopes of Protoss players everywhere. He is MaxPax from Psystorm Gaming.
I would argue he needs more of an introduction than every other player in the circuit. In the top left-hand side, it is a player that has been introduced to us many a time before. We know what he looks like, we know his name, etc. His name is, in-game, MaNa.
What do you mean? Maynard figured out MaxPax's name ages ago. It's Maximus Paximus.
True. Maximus Paximus. And he goes for the very early scout as well, so he is playing the role of the overdog to some degree here, just saying, hey, I don't want to get cheesed, I don't want anything funky to happen. And of course, this probe has the added utility of delaying the expansion as well. On the other side, MaNa does the same. So just a mirror for the time being.
Yeah, I feel like one of the most cited things for why MaxPax has such an unbelievably killer win rate in PvP, most players will just talk about it's his early game. It's the way that he deals with this very, very early stage of the gateway wall in on different maps, on maps that have a ramp, and sometimes going for the pylon block or something against the Nexus, and then sometimes going for his own proxy Stargate and going for his own Void Ray all in versus dealing with the Void Ray all in, and all of these little interactions that happen in the early game. It seems like MaxPax just, the way that other pro players describe it is MaxPax just gets it and nobody else does, which maybe is a bit of an exaggeration at times, but it's wild to watch how good MaxPax is.
No, absolutely. I mean, decision-making wise, he's always so impressive because he will move out with like little pockets of units, kind of similar to what we were talking about with Hero Mania at his prime in the TVP matchup. MaxPax does it in this matchup where he just knows, I have 3 units, but it's more than you can handle, so I'm gonna go lean on that. Whereas most players would be very hesitant to move out with, say, 3 expensive units, right? Like MaxPax will do that sort of magic where he just knows his position and what his opponent can and cannot have. And he is also extremely lightning quick at reacting just mentally to what his opponent is doing and adapting. He does it better than anyone else, I think.
Yeah, worth mentioning that I believe, ooh, a little bit of misclick there, actually a big misclick there from MaNa, unfortunate. Also lets the shield battery finish at his front line, so it is going to get gradually whittled away at, but the Stalker should be able to deny that high ground vision. The Zealot is actually going to add in some extra DPS. He may be able to kill that shield battery.
Yeah, it will definitely die if MaxPax wants it, and he's preparing for a Shade, I'm sure, as a follow-up, as the Shade now goes into the main. Chrono Boost for MaNa here, as the Shade gets a little bit stuck there, maybe a little bit of a misclick from MaxPax himself. Oh no, he didn't want oh, that's so brilliant. He didn't want the Stalker to chase the Shade because there was an Oracle coming in. So the Oracle instead is going to be looking for some damage here, might find a probe, maybe a second one, but now the Stalkers are being warped in. And MaNa will fend off the aggression. So that was so brilliant. It looked like a that is the kind of thing that he will do, right? It's like it looked like he wanted to finish the Shade, and on all accounts it looks like a good Shade, but it's just gonna be one Adept in the main. So he says, do I want one Adept to get chased back into the main, or do I want my Oracle to kind of get in unrestricted? And yeah, he's always willing to play for those little advantages and those little just tweaks.
Yeah, very, very cool. Now with 2 Oracles, he can circumvent that shield battery, but instead he's just going to go straight over to the natural, and target fires down individual probes here. Nearly ends up losing an Oracle, doesn't end up losing it, but is going to end up losing a handful of these gateway units as a beautiful warp in over there. The Stalker does wall in those units. The shield battery keeps the Stalker alive as well. So a nice defense there from MaNa, you know, despite losing a couple of workers here and there, and MaxPax is still doing a great job with this bit of aggression. I feel like MaNa has actually been also handling a lot of the defense pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. But with that probe pool that he had earlier, and still the damage kind of like piling up a little bit for MaxPax. I still like his early game better. Another brilliant decision that he just made, like again, to speak of the little details, is his oracles were headed towards the main. You know that at the main there's 2 stalkers. He spots 2 stalkers at the natural, and then he opts to go for the natural. And it's not like in a vacuum that is an easy decision to make, as one oracle will fall. But to make it that quickly and to click and make sense, it just makes so much sense to go for the natural, because at the natural you have the buffer of the extra units, whereas in the main you will not, and you will split your attention as well. So if you're gonna deal with 2 stalkers on either side, better to use the side that is being buffered by your extra units, and then you have 1 screen to worry about instead of 2 as well, where the stalkers don't need to be microed as much, right? They just need to be in position.
Oh my god, so MaxPax came in with his oracle into the main, and his revelation caught so much except for the Dark Shrine. He did not see the Dark Shrine. But here's the kind of one of the big differences: the oracles can provide vision for the DTs. Right now, MaNa doesn't have any detection for the DTs. He's getting up a robo now, but it's going to be a bit before he has it.
Yeah, and I think MaxPax just... Oh no, barely didn't spot the Dark Shrine again when he poked with the oracle just now, so that's pretty cool too. Good defense there from MaNa, great positioning on the Dark Shrine. The Dark Templars are now here for MaxPax, so we'll see if they are able to breach. Another building goes down for MaNa just to delay things for him to finish his robo and get it out there. On the other side, MaxPax also applying pressure to the third, and he actually has more stalkers, but he's gonna play it on the cautious end.
So DTs for MaNa are now inside of MaxPax's natural though, and he is getting a lot of damage done over here. If MaNa can defend against these DTs of MaxPax, he's going to be at a massive advantage.
Huge. And I mean, he is defending brilliantly, right? He has been putting buildings down and down. Like the Cybercore is actually the better building as compared to the Gateway, as it has more effective HP on building. So very well done and thought out here from MaNa, who killed 17 workers on the other side. And a lot of that is that Dark Shrine positioning, the fact that it gets missed with the first revelation, and the follow-up scout from the Oracle as well. So great job concealing the DTs from MaNa, and it's gonna pay off big time.
Yep. And finally, that Oracle is going to start getting some energy back to do another revelation. But MaNa is moving across the map. He knows that his window of opportunity is here. He has a massive army supply lead. There's no way that third base can be easily defended here by MaxPax, especially when his entire army is on the other side of that natural expansion wall, and shield battery just immediately gets target fired down. A random force field just kind of circumvents or throws off the angle of attack for some of these stalkers, but MaNa surely has got this game in the bag now.
He certainly does, and I mean, he has a very strong position up this ramp. He's not gonna give MaxPax any wiggle room. He can take a third for free here effectively, so he might as well do that. He's gonna hold a strong position here on the high ground as well. The Zealots are coming to buffer here on the side of MaxPax to see if he can hold on for dear life. But yeah, damage has been done. Another 15 probes have fallen, now widening the gap to 15 all day, and MaNa is in a brilliant position.
Yeah, MaNa is going to be bleeding off a handful more units there than maybe he normally would have wanted to, just because the reinforcements are obviously a lot slower for him. I have to move all the way across the map, but I think you're absolutely right. He still is going to be leading up, not leading up that much army supply just yet, but with 4 additional gateways on the way, I think eventually he will be able to just straight up outproduce MaxPax. It's just going to take a little bit, and he still has to make sure he's dealing with the DT counteroffensive that MaxPax is throwing at him.
Yeah, absolutely. More stalkers again for MaNa. I wouldn't mind the blink forward onto the stalkers of MaxPax, but he's just gonna settle for the third, and that's a great call. Additional probes are gonna fall here. Still has more army, and MaxPax will be forced to tap out. MaNa with the upset in game number 1.
Yep, absolutely. Want to also note that he did have MaNa made a photon cannon in his natural expansion mineral line, so nice. The DT counteroffensive was not able to get anything done there. MaNa just really playing that game well. Obviously, there's little bits of, like, you can kind of say luck with how things worked out, where the Oracle just barely missing the revelation on the Dark Shrine multiple times was really unfortunate. But both of those players were basically caught in a situation where they didn't really scout the other one's Dark Shrine. MaNa went for the slightly safer play by actually starting up the robo, I think, before he really saw or confirmed anything. And He was able to make really great decisions, as you were pointing out, with a cyber corded build buy time, the overcharge on the stalker to ensure that 2 DTs couldn't just kill that stalker that was part of the wall. And he was making a lot of great decisions and reacting quickly. And MaxPax didn't have a unit in the wall, and he didn't notice the blur or anything. So MaNa actually just played really well that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's also little aspects of, like, for example, one of the oracles getting picked off early on. That is the source of most of the revelations that you would need for DTs. The other one was busy trying to find revelations and spending its energy on the other side. So a lot of the time, if you're MaxPax, you open the oracle, your opponent didn't open the oracle, so you are basically, you can afford to delay that robo, right? Like on paper at least, because you have revelation to work with. But in this particular game, it didn't pan out that way because, again, the first oracle falls and the second one was so busy trying to find out what was going on that that it just, yeah, he was just caught off guard.
Absolutely. Well, we head into Hecate in game number 2, and
Hecate.
I was saying, you know, I was telling Wardy, like every single, I did a preface at the beginning of the day. Every single caster is pronouncing all of the maps differently, so I've preemptively apologized that I'm just going to be pronouncing it some way, and I'm sorry if it's the wrong way, but yeah.
Well, Wardy had the right way. It's I forgot actually.
Hecate.
You know,
Hecate.
You know, the problem is some of the pronunciations that people have looked up are different from what the map maker says. So what is the right way? Is the right way the way the map maker says to do it, or is the right way when it's an actual word and you pronounce it the way that the word is supposed to be pronounced? Or is it the way that the majority of the community pronounces it?
Right. I mean, in time, it would be whatever the way that the majority pronounces it, I think, as language does tend to evolve. But I don't know. I would stick with the word. Maybe the map maker, if the map maker is going after the concept that the word already represents, I think that that's the most sensible. So Hecate.
What does the word mean?
It's Greek. I believe it's Greek. I'll Google it really quick. Goddess.
It's the goddess.
Witchcraft.
Greek
witchcraft
goddess.
And the night
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wardy.
Much like Astrea is also a goddess. Greek goddess.
True. Speaking of which, we do have a godlike player here, as MaNa is going to be going for the 2-gate opening against MaxPax, who's going for that low ground gate expand, but we have the proxy pylon in the middle of the map. What is MaNa going to be up to? Is he going to be looking to get hyper aggressive, as we do have a proxy gate on the way, taking him up to a total of 3?
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to be seeing. It's a robo, however, on the side of MaxPax, not a Stargate, so probably the better choice here. Immortals are going to be most useful, I think, in this stage of the game compared to Void Rays, who, you know, like are a little bit easier to focus down by the right number of stalkers. So robo is kind of ideal here for MaxPax, who is also going to spot the extra gateway, and he now well knows what's coming.
Yeah, what's kind of funny is that gateway, it could theoretically also be used as a backup proxy pylon, but really it's going to be that other forward gateway that's used as the proxy pylon. So I actually wonder, does MaxPax scout that and think, are you just going to have a really far back proxy pylon, or are you going to try and build another one? Actually, wait, did he just send a probe further out and scout the other proxy? He did scout the other proxy location. So yeah, he's on to it. He knows that MaNa's not just going to have a really far back gateway.
Yeah, and it's going to be 4 gateways now confirmed. So getting sentries, getting the immortal. I love the sentries here because, you know, with 4 gateways this early, there's not going to be blink. So immortals in combination with sentries is going to be kind of like the perfect units to have. It's just an issue of if he's going to be able to get enough, as this is a very committed attack coming up from MaNa.
Yeah, this is actually also the kind of situation that I was talking about where MaxPax just seems to excel. These are the kind of situations that people mention how good MaxPax is and how unbeatable he sometimes feels.
Oh,
now,
the sentry for MaNa. The sentry for MaNa, it's huge. And he's actually, but the battery overcharge gets popped.
Yeah.
Unfortunate for MaNa.
That is definitely going to complicate things. And that means that sentry is not going to have energy for quite a bit of time. Is not going to be able to do the same kind of play for a bit. But, now the double adepts are going to try and shade on forward. No, not able to make anything happen there. And, well, MaxPax is doing a great job defending, but shield battery overcharge is at least gone, so he can target fire down that immortal. Can he actually kill it, though? No, the answer is a resounding no, and MaNa's already been bleeding out a lot of units during this.
Yeah, another force field will block out one of the immortals here as the shield batteries are starting to run out of energy, but one of them finishes. Will give him a little bit more gas there for MaxPax, and he just continues to add shield batteries, which is the perfect play. If you just hold off, you know your opponent doesn't have an expansion, so things are going to look wonderful for you. The sentry gets taken down as well, so not going to have that play available with the force fields, and it wouldn't have mattered too much anyway, as now there's a War Prism as well to help micro those immortals to infinity.
Yeah, and a Nexus being started up for MaNa is kind of the ultimate signal that he knows this is no longer working. Even warping and back at home, I think as soon as MaxPax sees that, that's a massive signal that, yeah, my opponent is really not planning to do a whole lot more with this attack. Adept Shade is also going to scout and confirm that the Stalker count is not growing, and that's going to give MaxPax the confidence to actually move out a little bit and potentially just kill off the proxy pylon.
And yeah, I think that's probably his next move here, is kill maybe even both gateways out on the map. Things look amazing for MaxPax at this stage. And yeah, it's like you were saying, I mean, this sort of thing is just so difficult to make work against him because he's so good at scouting, preparing, and adapting. So yeah, it's not gonna work out for MaNa this time around, and very difficult to imagine that he'll be able to pull this one back.
Yeah. Depths are going to be trying to shade on forward for MaxPax just to get some scouting information, but also potentially to try and shade in the main base, but he ends up canceling that, and well, might actually be hunted down a bit over here. But soon it seems like MaxPax is going to be the one doing the hunting. So interesting, he does not waste any time going for the proxy gateway, which in theory could maybe warp in to Adepts and do some damage while MaNa's trying to mount some kind of defense. But it seems like MaxPax just knows that proxy gateway on his side of the map is not really going to be too big of a concern. Actually, oh no, sorry, I apologize. He did depower it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, he wasted the least amount of time to depower it. Even defensively, right? It's one gateway that you take out of your opponent's arsenal, so
yep,
definitely worth it to make that stop. And now MaxPax is ready to go. 3 immortals, only 2 shield batteries, and a measly amount of units for MaNa, so looks near impossible here. MaxPax looks to be waiting for another warp in. Phoenixes, maybe a little bit of a deterrent there, as they're going to be able to lift up the immortals, but there's not really enough firepower here from MaNa either way. Even with a shield battery overcharge, it would be very difficult, but MaxPax is choosing to play this overly cautiously.
Yeah, it did seem like it was going to be pretty difficult there for MaNa to defend against that many immortals, but yeah, I am kind of curious. I wonder if he did feel like maybe a couple more Phoenix are going to be popping out, or maybe he was fearing that a Void Ray or two was going to be there and would help be able to change the tide of things. But either way, I mean, MaxPax theoretically should have just been ahead regardless. He knows that MaNa has to stay very pinned back right now. I'm wondering about the one thing right now, Cats, which is Phoenix, when you do give them the ability to build up to a high enough number, especially in PvP, they can start to force your opponent to stay at home and defend and create awkward situations where you're bleeding out workers. We're about to see this Phoenix dive in and start to pick off a couple of units. This is kind of like one way you can pull yourself back into PvP.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you can eventually get to charge. Like, we haven't seen the Twilight Council dropped yet. But once you get charged, and when you have Phoenix and charge, it's going to be so much more difficult for MaxPax to make use of this power spike that he got himself into from having this number of immortals this early on, right? So now he's going to look to make use of it. Charge is still not even started for MaNa, so this is still a very powerful timing. The Phoenix already used a lot of their energy, and one is going to go down there. So this still looks pretty unstoppable.
Yeah, Stalker is just going to be able to move on forward. A couple of force fields are going to lock these immortals on in, and shield battery overcharge is going to keep units alive for quite a bit of time.
Yeah, great pickups as well from MaxPax to save the immortal. One of them will be deep in the red, and the shield battery overcharge has to just be waited out before he can try again, which seems to be now. A lot of Phoenix here still on the field. Gonna pick off one of or two of those immortals right away. One of them will fall. The other one barely survives, but not for long. Still not enough units here for MaNa. No shield battery overcharge to speak of. He's gonna be able to, or try to pull the probes to try to stay alive, but it looks very, very difficult. And even if he was to stay alive, he will have bled out even more than he had. So yeah, it looked like a pretty impossible game after he didn't make the 4 gateways work, basically.
Yeah, when you're down in the stalker count versus stalker count, and you're basically on stalkers and maybe a couple of Phoenix, your opponent also has 4 immortals on top of having more stalkers. It's pretty difficult to really recover from that. So understandable, but that is going to tie things up 1-1. Really, really tough to try and bust out those moves, but I feel like it's not impossible, but it feels nigh impossible to play PvP if you don't at least throw out the threat of some of those kind of attacks. It's just really tough, and this is what makes MaxPax so scary of a player. It's tough to make those things work against MaxPax, so it almost feels like you have to throw away these games to show that you're willing to do those attacks, even though you know MaxPax is so good at defending against them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to try something, and it worked out for MaNa game 1, but look at all it took, right? Like, it took that beautiful, perfect positioning on the Dark Shrine, and then it barely not getting spotted by 2 different, basically, attempts from MaxPax that had already lost 1 Oracle. So the stars lined up in game 1, but that's kind of what game 1 felt like, right? It wasn't. It was an outplay in the sense that he where his building placement, his unit placement to deny information, etc. But it wasn't like an outplay on the field or with like the battle or micro or decision making past that point, right? So
Yeah,
MaNa's really gonna have to still do some magic here to make the series happen.
well, absolutely going to need a little bit of magic. We'll see if we can summon it, as he's going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand side of Golden Aura from Team Liquid. He is MaNa.
And in the top left-hand side, his opponent equalizing the series 1-1 for Sidestorm Gaming. It's MaxPax. On the map, Gold in Aura.
Gold in Aura.
In Aura.
In Aura.
Does it bother you that it's not 2 words? It's just typed as 1 word? No, it's unclear. It could be Gold in Aura.
That's a good question. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, Cats. I thought... Is it just the ESL version that has no space between Golden and Aura?
I'm not sure. It's the first time I've noticed it, to be honest. It could also be Gol, as in like it could be in Spanish. And it's Gol de, which means off. Naura could be like a last name. So it's like Gol de Naura, you know? Gol de Naura.
It's the gold of Naura.
Yeah,
Naura is actually a cool name.
Yeah, I like it.
Although it'd be one of those names that you pick and then Starbucks gets the spelling of your name wrong every single time.
And that's what happens to me every single time, though.
Really? I feel like your name is not hard to spell.
Really? And yet, I mean, I get more Pablo than Paulo for sure.
Okay, that I could see, yeah.
Yeah.
What is your favorite misspelling of your name? From like Starbucks or wherever else?
Yeah, it's rare to get something other than Pablo, to be honest.
Oh, really? Oh, I feel like you could get some fun ones. But
Paolo, Paula, I get sometimes with a name.
Paula, yeah.
I don't pronounce the O well enough, yeah.
Yeah. I think I've gotten, some great ones. I've been pronounced a rabbi many times.
Rabbi?
By various coffee baristas.
How do you misspell it? Oh.
R-A-B-I.
Oh, I see.
I get pronounced a rabbi. I think my favorite is still Boben, B-O-B-E-N, where I think they just gave up and just, yeah.
What?
And you know, it's great because I walk up to them and I say, my name is Ravi, R-A-V-I, and they're like, Boben, B-O-B-E-N. Yeah. I'm like, wow, you just gave up. You just didn't even try today.
Didn't even try. Yeah, that's Starbucks for you. They didn't try.
But I'll tell you who is absolutely trying and, you know, has been putting in a good effort and has already earned himself a very admirable start. It's MaNa, who's now going to be not only tied up 1-1 against a godlike PvP player like MaxPax, but has 2 probe kills, potentially a 3rd on the way, and has a scouting probe still alive.
Oh, that was beautiful. I didn't see where the shade was, so I was like, oh my god, why is he shading out? But he just shaded to the other side. That was wonderfully done. 4 probes. I mean, that's massive active full forces. The activation of the pulsar beam on the other side of the map as well.
And
that's not what you want if you're MaxPax. And kills the Adept. This man was 0-5 at the start of playoffs, and or at the start of this event, and he ended up making it here by kind of reversing that into 3 wins in a row, which is absolutely wild. He was 0-5 in maps, so 1 map away from being eliminated, and ends up qualifying, and now in a great position to take a lead against what many consider to be the best Protoss player or the best PvP player in the world.
Yeah. I mean, even Hero, at least at the Gamers 8 event, was, and I asked him straight up, who do you think is better, you or MaxPax? Hero was saying he thought MaxPax was better than him.
That's classic. That's classic Korean etiquette, though.
That's a fair point, but regardless, I'm gonna take the point and run with it and say MaxPax has an argument for being one of the best, if not the best, Protoss player. Sure. Period. Not
certainly,
just PvP.
Certainly in PvP, certainly in PvP, I think he's a very strong contender for it. Yeah, in other matchups, I mean, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Hero for sure.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of him as well, but. So far, PvP, man, MaNa killing off an Oracle as well, even though 2 workers did end up dying. Now the shield battery fully going to be able to make use of itself, as that main base is pretty well protected against a single Oracle. Just has to position his stalkers over at the natural, and he should be pretty safe against losing too many more. MaNa's off to a spectacular start for this PvP.
Yeah, I love it. You love to see it, right? Like from the veteran here, he's been around since the beginning of StarCraft 2. Like he's transitioning even into somewhat of a more manager role in Team Liquid. He spoke of how curious his first sign up into Team Liquid as a manager, right? So kind of diversifying his roles and still able to put up this sort of fight and potentially results would be absolutely wild.
Yeah, loved the transition to Liquid manager, and there was definitely some fear that maybe some of those results would deteriorate, but as you said, MaNa is just someone who has been playing. I feel like, you know, you're also such an old school player. He's been there since the beginning. He's still here, and he's still actually killing it against the best Protoss player in the world. He's got a proxy pylon and a proxy gate getting set up next to a 3rd base that's being established. MaNa even sees that 3rd base is like, I don't need to reveal these just yet. I'm gonna wait a little bit and then go in. I'm not going to give you back those minerals just immediately, and even finds an opportunity where he's able to potentially jump in on top of those units. I think he did manage to snag a single stalker there.
Yeah, it didn't look like it. Yeah. And this looks amazing for MaNa. I mean, takes down the pylon as well. That's going to slow things down for MaxPax on defense as far as the shield battery is concerned. So no real anchor for this Nexus here. And now MaNa with a good concave is going to force MaxPax into him and actually goes for the blink forward. I absolutely love that. He was super ready for that. Will blink on top of the units, now getting some probes and the Zealot as well for his troubles, as MaxPax is forced to reinforce all the way at his natural. The Oracle is trying to equalize things on the other side and does a great job of picking up 5 workers, but this base looks doomed. MaxPax is not even going to try to defend it.
Yeah, worth mentioning, it also does force 2 Stalker Warpins back at home, so that means MaNa theoretically should have slightly fewer units, but I don't think it's going to matter because it's 17 Stalkers on the map to 11 for MaxPax right now. Even with 2 Stalkers on the other side, MaNa is going to have not only killed the 3rd base, but he's still making more units. He has 7 Stalkers over his opponent. Shield battery overcharge be damned. This is just enough for MaNa potentially to seize the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful blinking here from MaxPax. Actually avoids 2 full volleys from the army of MaNa. And, you know, if you could do that endlessly, then obviously you're back in it. But, oh, MaNa actually choosing to go for the Cyber Core. And MaxPax opting into the blink forward himself to give MaNa a very difficult decision. Very difficult readjustment. Blinks right after the volley goes off as well. And yeah, this is looking very difficult for MaxPax still, obviously. But I wonder if MaNa can overextend a little bit here.
I think it's definitely possible, but also remember that MaNa has not only the 3rd base, and yes, he has taken some damage from the Oracle harassment, but he has 5 warp gates, and he just killed not only the Cyber Core, but also one of the gateways. MaxPax can only warp in 3 units at a time right now, and he's going to be very reliant on the Robo. Maybe even the Stargate actually wouldn't be a bad idea to start using.
Yeah. And here's where I think MaNa just needs to take a breather. Like, yeah, I don't mind picking off the wall. Obviously, it's going to be wonderful there with the Cyber Core and the extra gateway. But right now, you have that 3rd. And that is exactly the point that he needs to hold on onto, right? Right now, he doesn't have very many more units out on the map, so a bad fight is what could allow MaxPax to take his own third, for example. Whereas if you just chill for a little bit and enjoy your economic lead, you know that your opponent's not producing the units that he would have liked to produce. You know that they gotta remake that Cybercore, etc. So yeah, I think right now is where if you're MaNa, I don't know, take a fourth or take a breather in general. Instead, he's gonna go for the Immortal and get it too. So even more room to breathe.
Yeah, wow. 10 workers going down is going to hurt there for MaNa a little bit, but even that Robo is starting to look a little bit exposed. If these Stalkers can just break through a little bit further, Shield Battery is going to be going up over here for MaxPax as well at that natural. And now with an Immortal popping on out again, the gold base in the bottom left with even enough resources to throw up a Shield Battery over there in case it does get scouted. I'm getting a little bit worried here for MaNa. I think he still does have a lot of momentum in his favor here, but Cats, I feel like things are starting to, I can see ways that things might start slipping away from him.
Yeah, and a lot of that is the Oracle that is now going into the natural again, or into the main again. I mean, he has done such a wonderful job. As it's finally gonna fall, I thought, but yeah, it should now.
Yeah.
Now that it stopped. Oh no, MaNa with a little bit of a misstep. I mean, that Oracle is such a hero. It might seem like a small deal, but it has been absolutely wild. 19 kills to its name. On the other side now, Guardian Shield getting involved with the Stalkers, but the Concave actually favors MaxPax. MaNa is trying to protect perhaps this proxy gateway of his, but it's not going to pan out too well for him, I don't think. I mean, this is the fight that MaxPax definitely wants to take. This is the fight for his own third, and MaNa would do well to disengage, I think. No, instead he's going to warp in 3 extra units, and that might just be enough. A couple of Zealots as well to buffer, and MaxPax has snuck in and a hidden expansion, so good on him as well. It's a gold.
Yeah, this is I mean, this is already just going to be paying massive dividends here. MaNa has been bleeding off all those workers earlier on, so he's not even fully saturated in his main base. He's finally saturated at his third base, but he's going to be losing that proxy gateway, losing some of the adepts that were trying to shade around and try and be annoying. So this is, I really do feel like MaNa had this game, I won't say entirely in the bag, but he had such a big advantage in it. It's gone.
It's completely gone unless he can find this base. If he can find this base, he might force a recall at the very least, and then maybe you can go and deny the other third on the other side, but he's not even gonna find it. And MaxPax is already moving out to protect it, not to use that recall if need be. Well aware of what his opponent's pathing might be, and yeah, at this point it's a MaxPax favorite game, which is just absolutely insane given how it started.
This is the power of MaxPax, man. He is someone that just somehow can win PvPs, even when it's almost nonsensical. But 2 Immortals gonna be poking on forward. Force Field does not quite lock in that Immortal, unfortunately, for MaNa, so it does squeeze on out of there. But, you know, MaNa is also, even though it does feel like a lot of his advantages have slipped away in this game, he's not down and out just yet. He may be down 2 upgrades, but he is at least going to be finishing up +1 weapons soon. We'll be catching up there. I think probably the biggest, scariest thing right now to me is just Charge going to be finishing on top of having MaxPax finishing up his 4th base. Like, those 2 things together are what scare me the most, I think, for the next couple of minutes for MaNa.
Yeah, it looks difficult, right? Like, he was in such a great position, and yeah, you're going up against one of the best players in the world who has just basically come back from a very difficult position in the game. MaNa is actually gonna blink on top of the Immortals to try to pick him off, but the Warp Prism is here, so the Immortal will be saved. At least one of them will. MaNa going past a little choke there. You don't want to do that, as he's gonna think better of it. MaxPax with extra Warpins. The charge is finished, like you were saying. Adepts on the other side have killed an additional 9 workers, and things go from bad to worse for the pole.
Yeah, I think this is what kind of worries me right now, Cats, is this is the kind of game where, unlike how we were talking about some of the games earlier with Hero Marine versus Showtime, game number 1. Oh, yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate with how the timing of things worked out, and Hero Marine ends up losing that game, but it's something you can just kind of move on from. This is one of those losses that I do think, I'm hoping MaNa is in a good mental place after this game, because this is a game that can kind of tilt you for a little bit. This is a game that does take a bit of mental strength to not feel a little bit off going into game number 4.
Yeah, all on the back of a little bit of over-eagerness, in my opinion, from MaNa, just to try to hold that position while he was taking a third and expanding or whatnot, instead of just kind of leaning on in his advantage. If he could have just had his army back home and not lost 19 workers to the Oracle, for example, just retains his advantage easily, and then you hit a timing once that third kicks in. You know you have a timing there, right? Because your opponent doesn't have that. So just the fact that he was trying to apply so much pressure, even, and there were there were parts where I thought he maybe would have overextended, and then he didn't. Like he showed me that, you know, there's like better things to do. Like maybe he calculated well enough to kill the gateway and the cyber core at the front. Wonderful. Maybe that's the time to disengage. Like he had so many opportunities to just run away with his lead, but yeah, wasn't able to. And now he's in a very dire situation.
Yeah, I will say one of the things that's kind of interesting about what's been happening is MaxPax, when you're aggressive with Immortals and you have a bunch of Blink Stalkers, it's very hard to actually retreat with them. So that means that during all these fights, I was going to say MaNa's been keeping his Immortals alive and MaxPax has been losing his, but MaNa loses 2 of his 3 Immortals and is still going to be up a lot of Stalkers over here. The Zealot count's also still pretty much dead in the water for both these players as they end up trading them out in the very beginning of these fights. But now we start to see the overwhelming Stalker count is a bit too much. The Immortals no longer alive there to hold as a linchpin here for MaNa. And we are going to see MaxPax gradually start to break through here.
Yep, good game, well played indeed. If you're MaxPax, and yeah, that attack wasn't even the cleanest, right? Like the Blink Stalkers blink on top of the Zealots, like kind of like restricting their own movement, so they don't get as involved as you would have liked. But still, a little bit too much.
Yeah. Well played there for both of those players. MaxPax, I mean, you do have to give him a lot of credit for just holding out for so long, and that was a game, like you said, that maybe MaNa just started getting a little bit over eager with. Some things that were going well started not going quite so well with some of those trades later on. But credit to MaxPax on, we were talking about this earlier, the power of that Oracle that was doing so much damage. That singular unit, I think, was what made the biggest difference of MaxPax's comeback in that game, because MaNa, he maybe was taking, again, like not the absolute best trades there, but if MaxPax hadn't done as much economic damage and even forcing warp-ins and forcing attention back at home for MaNa, I don't think it actually would have been enough for MaxPax to come back in the game without the Oracle damage.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that was 19 workers, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if you just play it cautiously, if you're MaNa, you're not taking that damage, right? If your army is not out on the map trying to get further ahead than you already are, like you already got yourself in a good position, you already have a strong timing, you already have the economic lead by a landslide. So if he could have just held on to that and played a little bit more cautious, then I think he would have had that game pretty easy.
Well, we get ready to hop into game number 4, and well, this is going to be an interesting one because it is going to be a player you would expect to be ahead to still be ahead right now, but this other player still definitely showing some signs of life in him. We're going to be in the top left-hand side of the map on top of the blue player from Team Liquid. He is MaNa.
Wow, not even a spin. And in the top right-hand side, it is the red Protoss player for Sidestorm Gaming, MaxPax. Also not a spin.
No spin because hopefully these players' heads are not going to be spinning after that last game.
Hopefully not.
I know that you are a person who's had a lot of pro playing experience yourself and everything. Is there ever a point where you just feel like you have so much experience that things like that, those losses don't really bother you, or like those kinds of games don't really bug you? Or is it, you know, even after 13, 14, 15 years, it still sometimes gets to you?
It really depends on the mental state that you go into a series with. Like if I'm MaNa going up against MaxPax, or if I'm, you know, myself going up against MaxPax, like me at my peak against the best player or one of the best players at the time, you know, if I take a game or two, I'm already kind of like feeling happy and zen, and you know, that's kind of what I was after. And if I showed my build orders and did something cool, then a lot of pressure is relieved. So it really depends, right? When you're the underdog, it's a different mentality than when you're the overdog. I think the pressure is in that sense off of MaNa's shoulders. No one expects him to win in this matchup, like quite honestly. So
Yeah.
So I think he has that going for him. But at the same time, when you come so close and you know you had the game in your hands, and you know it would be such a cool and a result and a potential upset, or at least to take an extra game out of one of the best players in the world, then it does feel crappy. So
Yeah. It's really weird how our mentalities work like that, where sometimes the fact that we were close to it hurts more than if we would just never been close at all. If it had always been out of our reach, it wouldn't have hurt as much.
No, yeah, definitely not, because then it's the prospect of what could have been, right? And
yeah,
it's just kind of gutting, right? So it really depends on the player as well, right? Like how attached to your ego you are, and how much you really care about the victory or about putting a good performance and your goals and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, for most players, I think it definitely would hurt a little bit to lose that sort of game, and it's difficult to shake it off.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how things pan out here in game number 4, because again, MaNa is far from out of this just yet, as he's already been able to put one on the board, and he did still manage to get leads in that last game as well. So can't shake that feeling that MaNa is still going to be putting out his best work here in game number 4. We'll see. We did see MaxPax kind of misplant his Nexus, I think, for a split second, or maybe I missaw it. Actually, hold on. Was it just the pylon cancel? It was just the pylon cancel, wasn't it? Yeah, never mind. I'm full of it. It was just, yeah, pylon standard PvP shenanigan, pylon blocking, and Nexus being thrown down behind it. But ooh, Adept getting in.
Yeah, but there's a shield battery at the natural. Not much is gonna happen there. And the other side, there's the Adept in the main. Actually,
ooh,
one probe now with the aid of the Oracle as well will go down. But the Adept of MaNa is actually more effective potentially, as it already gathered 2 probes on his own. No Oracle to help. One more shot would have done it, but MaxPax with beautiful micro on the probe, anticipating that MaNa will continue to move in the direction away from the Stalker. So yeah, 3 for 2, but less investment on the side of MaNa to get the 2 than there was from MaxPax to get the 3. So all in all, you know, a little bit of a wash, maybe even a slight advantage for MaNa here.
Yeah, a couple more workers are going down though, as the double Oracle does pop on in, and they actually find quite a few. If MaNa had been able to find that Oracle kill, I think maybe he would have felt okay about those trades, but now missing it, that is definitely going to be a little bit more painful.
Yeah, absolutely. So MaNa's going to be the first player transitioning over to Blink, but not far behind him is going to be MaxPax, who, remember, opened Oracles as well, so really little right to be as close in the rest of the deck as he is, but there we have him. It's 35 workers as well to 31, so MaxPax with the advantage. MaNa not paying attention to his Stalker, and that's why he was looking at the Oracle, who was trying to do more in the main. Is there still an Oracle remaining, or
there is
still one?
Yeah, there is one, but it's the low health Oracle as well, so it's going to be a little bit tougher. Now we do have 3 warp gates versus 3 warp gates, a 4th warp gate on the way here from MaNa, so he is going to eventually have more production capabilities than MaxPax. And actually, MaNa is actually a little bit supply blocked right now. He's throwing down a 2nd pylon as well, so it's going to slow his additional reinforcing warp in as he's trying to go for a big attack here.
Yeah, both players opting for the gold here. MaxPax is going to be a little bit quicker to it. MaNa is, I mean, when you're dropping your own gold, it's not hard to imagine that your opponent is doing the same. So I would love for MaNa to check, and that's exactly where he's going to go. It's an easy thought to have, but does he have the units to actually do something, as now he is in the bad position basically down the ramp. So MaxPax will get the first volley off. He has more units to speak of as well. The Zealot will tank here for MaNa, but not for long. And now it's 7 Stalkers to the 3. MaNa will get Blink to disengage soon, but again, MaxPax's Blink will be right behind him. So not a favorable trade at all for MaNa.
Unfortunate trades there for sure, and MaNa now going to be sitting down in the Stalker count for a little bit. He is able to reinforce a little bit faster since he has 4 warp gates out compared to just the 3, but all of those resources invested in additional Stalker reproduction is going to mean he has a little bit less for tech. So even though Twilight Council is finished up, no additional tech really coming out, no charge or anything going to be coming out, no robo. Actually, no, he did finish up a robo during all this, so is eventually going to be able to start up on robo production. But yeah, still going to be a kind of awkward spot here for MaNa.
No, yeah, most definitely. I mean, there's still like a little bit of a defender's advantage. He's gonna have the shield batteries to work with, so maybe he can hold off here and kind of like make this into a longer game and equalize things. It's definitely not a huge advantage for MaxPax. The Immortal is about to pop up for MaNa as well, which should help a great deal if it doesn't get caught in transition towards his base. But yeah, a good start for MaxPax here, who's going to use his Oracle to blink to the main and see what he can find. He's going to find a pylon by the looks of it for sure. And maybe a couple of probes. I love that stasis as well to retreat to. So...
Ooh, okay, only catches one Stalker over there. So that is going to be, I guess, the best MaNa could really hope for with that.
Yeah, unfortunately the Immortal wasn't there to partake, but and on the other side, MaxPax with 2 adept skills, 4 workers at the gold as well, so annoying, so good at multitasking as well. Make it 5, jeez.
Oh yeah, this is just MaxPax showcasing on why he's so gosh darn good at PvP, or just honestly StarCraft in general. It's not even PvP specific stuff, it's just MaxPax is killing it.
Yeah, this was a beautiful move from MaNa, though, anticipating that he has his own Immortal down the ramp. And he blinks forward the Stalkers, which is going to net him a decent trade. The Immortal does fall down, but he will kill a lot of the Stalkers on retreat here from MaxPax, as now the rest of his Stalkers join the forces that blink down. And MaxPax is going to evacuate with what he can, but it's not all that much. And MaNa has definitely done a great job of equalizing things there as he gains a little bit of an army supply. The problem for him is the workers. He sits at 45 to his opponent's 62, so still a little bit of damage to find here for him if he's gonna equalize this now in the long run.
Yeah, I feel like the production tab also kind of was telling a bit of a tale there, as you see MaNa is basically making a Warp Prism, he's making a DT and finally adding on a couple of gateways, maybe trying to reproduce a couple of these probes. MaxPax has charge on the way, +1 weapons, another Immortal, 4 Warp Gates now finishing on up. A photon cannon to help deal with the DT defense just in case he needs that. Like, he is really just getting set up for a much later stage game, and MaNa still has to find some damage, but DT finding its way in.
Yeah, that's the perfect position as well. There's no photon cannon there, that's for sure, in the natural. So 7-8 workers already fallen. That is great. MaNa is gonna go into the main. He will actually not find a photon cannon there either, so it's the perfect call here for him, as the Stalkers are trying to chase the DT around. The DT is not rallied onto probes, and now the Stalkers cage him in with their bodies.
Yeah, even just moving the Stalkers over the probes makes it harder to click on the probes, so even if you are paying attention, it does require a little bit extra effort to make sure you're clicking on them, but saving the DT is really nice. 10 workers, definitely not anything to shake a stick at, so...
No, for sure. I mean, that's more or less just equalizing the economy to a good degree, and that's the area that he was lagging at for sure. So great job from MaNa there. The problem for him is, again, the upgrades. He's going to be lagging a little bit behind in that regard, but not by a ton. So both players, it's unlikely that MaxPax fights with +1 while MaNa doesn't have it for too long, unless this engagement happens here, though it's a good position for MaNa regardless, concave-wise.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if MaxPax does decide to reinforce with more charge lots as well, because that is another one of the big differences between these two armies, is MaxPax having charge is able to get a little bit more done with the reinforcements after the Stalker counts have been whittled away down a little bit. So it's not just, you know, Stalkers occupying the entire space so charge lots can't get to the front.
Yeah, a little bit more fighting here. This is not it for MaNa, so a lot of his Stalkers were not partaking. Now MaxPax moving further into a strong position where he holds the concave while threatening the wall off, and Adept is continuing to be annoying there. And now MaNa looking for a little bit of a flank, but the Serral reinforcements are going to do wonders here for MaxPax. There is a shield battery available at the natural as well, a little bit of a flank, a surround you could call it, from MaNa, but that is going to make it difficult in some ways. So the charge lots will charge on forward to the army on the right, and now it's 2 fights that MaxPax can pick between, both of them with less units for MaNa than his 1 ball in the middle. So it looks pretty great for the Dane here.
Yeah, DTs are going to be able to save the day, and that is largely thanks to the fact that MaNa could not warp in additional stalkers until just now. His Cybercore had been picked off. He finally managed to remake it and is getting a pretty stellar defense in the main base against the Warp Prism and the Warp Prism drop. But the DTs really helping out in just buying MaNa a little bit of time to get up some more units, pushing MaxPax back for a little bit, and well, we'll see how these trades are going to be able to go. Does MaxPax... Okay, MaxPax has another observer out there, but the DT is doing a good job staying alive.
Yeah, I like the position of the observer for MaNa as well. He sieges it to try to snipe any observers that come into range of his. That's going to give him a little bit of a visual advantage. But MaxPax not overstepping, just keeping the observer behind his army, as that's going to be plenty since, you know, DTs are melee units. So he will continue to retain this advantage in a very good position out of the map. The observer looking to get picked off on the side of MaNa. He will actually end up getting both of them. So now he has an opening here with the DTs. On the other side, Selot Ramba is going to get rid of that one cannon. Where are the DTs? However, they crossed the map looking for greener pastures. They would much rather be with the army right here, right now, and they're not.
Yeah, that part is going to be a bit unfortunate, but he does warp in at least a defensive DT. Just shield battery overcharge also going to be popped, but also picked off very quickly. If these zealots are not cleaned up, that could be devastating here for MaNa, but it looks like it may already be devastating. These DTs, they're putting in work, but he is also down at basically half the supply of his opponent already. It feels like despite the DTs not being detected, it's going to be too much.